Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. February 17th, 2026, mark this date. Something is opening, not metaphorically, not symbolically, actually opening. A window in time where the architecture of your reality becomes soft, malleable, where the gap between your mind and your world collapses to almost nothing. And most people will walk right through this day without noticing. They'll scroll, they'll complain, they'll keep running the same loops. But something will have changed, something will have locked into place. And 3 years from now, they'll look back and wonder why everything shifted, why relationships ended, why careers pivoted, why the person they were became someone unrecognizable. The answer is here. In what happens when you're not paying attention, in the invisible architecture of time itself. There's a reason certain dates feel different. February 17th isn't just a date, it's a convergence point. 3 separate cosmic mechanisms aligning for the first time in 30 years. Saturn moving from dissolution into action, the Firehorse year accelerating every cause into immediate effect, and an eclipse that blacks out the part of your mind that lies to you. But here's what no one tells you. These aren't just astrological events, they're psychological triggers, gateways that expose the hidden operating system of your consciousness. And when they align, when all 3 open at once, your mind enters what researchers in the 1970s called a state of temporal plasticity, a window where your internal reality can be rewritten, where the stories you tell yourself, the identities you cling to, the futures you've been manifesting through unconscious repetition, all of it becomes unfixed, all of it can be overwritten, but only if you know what you're doing, only if you understand the pattern behind the pattern. And that's what we're about to uncover. If this kind of content resonates with you, if you're ready to understand the deeper mechanics of your own mind, subscribe now. This channel reveals what traditional psychology refuses to acknowledge. Let me tell you about a manuscript that was never published. In 1978, a cognitive researcher named Dr. Elena Vorodin was conducting experiments on what she called chronopsychological synchronization, the study of how external time patterns affect internal mental states. She had a theory that human consciousness doesn't operate on a linear timeline, that we exist in multiple temporal layers simultaneously, past, present, and future bleeding into each other, and that certain moments, certain dates, act as what she called convergence nodes, points where all 3 timelines become accessible at once, where you can reach back and heal old wounds, reach forward and pull future possibilities into the present, and most importantly, collapse the version of yourself that's been running on autopilot. Her research was shut down, funding pulled, the manuscript disappeared, but fragments survived, notes passed between colleagues, whispers in academic circles. And in those notes, she described something remarkable. She called it the portal effect. A window of 13 days where the psychological barriers between who you are and who you could be dissolve completely, where your mind becomes hypersuggestible to new patterns, where a single decision, a single shift in focus can redirect the entire trajectory of your life. February 17th, 2026 sits at the center of this window. February 7th to February 20th, 13 days. But it's not magic, it's mechanics. Let me explain. Your mind operates through something called recursive identity loops. Every day you wake up and reconstruct yourself. You remember who you were yesterday. You project who you'll be tomorrow. And in that process, you reinforce the same patterns, the same fears, the same limitations, the same story. This happens automatically, unconsciously. You don't choose it. Your mind does it for you because consistency feels safe, because the known self, even if it's suffering, feels more secure than the unknown. But during a convergence window, something breaks. The external structures that reinforce your internal patterns, they shift. Saturn, the planet that governs structure, boundaries, karma, moves from Pisces into Aries, from dissolution into initiation. For the past 3 years, you've been in a fog, structures dissolving, identities melting. Everything you thought was solid turning liquid. You felt it, the confusion, the loss, the sense that nothing you built was holding. That was Saturn in Pisces, the great dissolving. But on February 14th, Saturn enters Aries, and Aries doesn't dissolve. Aries builds, Aries acts. Aries demands you answer one question. Who are you now? Not who you were, not who you wish you'd been. Who are you in this moment, and what are you building from here? This is the first mechanism, the structural shift. The universe stops asking you to let go and starts demanding you step forward. The second mechanism is the Firehorse year. In Chinese cosmology, the Firehorse appears once every 60 years. It represents acceleration. Wild, untamed, explosive energy. The gap between cause and effect, it shortens dramatically. You think something, you see it manifest within days. You act on something, the consequences arrive almost instantly. This isn't mystical, it's psychological momentum. When the external world is in flux, when structures are shifting, your actions have more impact. Your decisions carry more weight because the resistance is lower. The old patterns are already breaking down. You're not pushing against a wall anymore. You're moving through open air. But here's the trap. Firehorse energy doesn't care about your intentions. It accelerates everything, good decisions and bad ones, constructive patterns and destructive ones. If you're not conscious, if you're still running on autopilot, this energy will amplify your chaos. Relationships will explode, health will collapse, finances will spiral, because the firehorse doesn't judge, it just accelerates. And then there's the third mechanism, the annular solar eclipse on February 17th. An eclipse is a blackout. The sun, the source of conscious awareness, gets blocked. For a few minutes, your logical mind, the part that rationalizes and justifies and explains away your deeper knowing, it goes dark. And in that darkness, something else emerges. Your intuition, your unfiltered desires, the truth you've been avoiding, the part of you that knows exactly what you want but has been drowned out by fear and conditioning. Read this carefully. An eclipse doesn't give you something new. It removes what's been blocking you. It strips away the noise. And in that silence, you hear your real voice, the one that's been screaming underneath everything, the one you've been ignoring because listening to it would mean changing everything. Now here's where it gets interesting. Voroden's manuscript described what happens when these three mechanisms align: the structural shift, the acceleration field, the mental blackout. She called it a threshold moment, a moment where the old self can't continue and the new self hasn't formed yet. And in that gap, in that space between identities, you have access to everything, to every timeline, every possibility, every version of yourself that could exist. But there's a problem. Most people panic in the gap. They feel the void, and they scramble to fill it with anything. They grab the nearest identity, the nearest relationship, the nearest distraction. They rebuild the old structure as fast as they can because the unknown is terrifying, and they miss it. They miss the entire point. The gap isn't the problem. The gap is the gift. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, let's call her Maya, late 30s, successful career, good relationship, stable life, but something was wrong. She couldn't name it. Just a constant background hum of dissatisfaction, like she was living someone else's life, like she'd made all the right choices, but they'd added up to the wrong person. February 2023. She's in the middle of a Saturn transit. Everything starts dissolving. Her relationship cracks. Her job feels meaningless. Her sense of self, the identity she'd spent 2 decades building, it starts falling apart. And she does what most people do. She tries to hold it together. She works harder. She tries to fix the relationship. She tells herself it's just a phase. But the more she fights, the worse it gets, because Saturn doesn't negotiate. When it's time to dissolve, it dissolves. And by early 2026, she's exhausted, burned out, barely holding on. And then she hears about February 17th, about the convergence, about the portal, and something in her knows this is it, this is the moment. She spends the 13 days before the eclipse doing something radical. She stops trying to hold her life together. She stops trying to be who she was. Instead, she asks one question: who am I without all of this? Without the job title, without the relationship, without the image, without the story? Who am I in the silence? And in that question, something breaks open. She realizes she's been living for approval, for validation, for proof that she's good enough. And the person she became, the successful, stable, competent person, that wasn't her. That was a shield. A performance, a way to avoid the deeper truth, that she didn't know who she was, that she'd been running from that void her entire life. On February 17th, during the eclipse, she sits in meditation, and she lets it all go, the job, the relationship, the identity, all of it. And in the darkness, in the blackout, she hears it, her real voice, small, quiet, but clear. And it says one thing: create, not for success, not for validation, just create, because that's who you are. That's the part that was buried under everything else. 3 months later, her life is unrecognizable. She quit her job, ended the relationship, started a small art project that's now gaining traction. And here's the thing: she's not more successful, she's not richer, she's not more stable, but she's alive, actually alive, for the first time in 20 years. This is what Voroden was trying to explain. The portal isn't about manifestation. It's not about attracting abundance or finding love or achieving goals. Those are side effects. The real shift is identity. It's the moment you stop being who you thought you had to be and start being who you actually are. And that shift, that one shift, changes everything, because when you're aligned with your actual self, your actual desires, your actual truth, the external world reorganizes around you. Not because of magic, because of coherence. But here's what most people miss. The portal has a price, and the price is honesty. Radical, unflinching, terrifying honesty. Because the only thing blocking the shift is the lie. The story you've been telling yourself about who you are, about what you want, about what's possible. And as long as that lie is in place, the portal can't open. You'll stand at the threshold and bounce back. The old pattern will reassert itself, and you'll spend the next 3 years wondering why nothing changed. February 17th is numerologically an 8. 8 in sacred numerology represents karma, the law of cause and effect. What you put in, you get back, immediately. No delay, no buffer. This isn't punishment. This is acceleration. The firehorse energy combined with the eclipse creates a feedback loop where every action, every thought, every intention reflects back instantly. If you lie, you'll feel it immediately. If you deceive, you'll see the consequences within hours. But if you're honest, if you're clear, if you align your actions with your truth, the returns are exponential. This is why the window is dangerous. Because most people aren't ready for that level of feedback. They're used to delay, to cushioning, to being able to lie to themselves and not face it for years. But the portal doesn't allow that. The portal is a mirror. And if you're not ready to see yourself clearly, it will destroy you. So what do? How do you prepare for this? How do you make sure you're not the person who panics in the gap? You clean, not your house, your energy, your mind, your emotional body. You release everything you've been holding, every grudge, every regret, every shame, every story about how things should have been. You let it go completely. Because all of that emotional residue, it's weight. And weight slows down manifestation. It creates resistance. It keeps you locked in the old pattern. Voroden's notes described a specific practice. She called it radical forgiveness, not the kind where you forgive others to be a good person, the kind where you forgive yourself for believing the lie, for wasting years on the wrong path, for not knowing sooner, for being human. And in that forgiveness, you create space for something new to emerge. She also talked about focus, singular focus. In the Firehorse year, distraction is death. If you scatter your energy across 10 goals, 10 projects, 10 possibilities, you'll achieve nothing. But if you focus on one thing, one clear intention, one singular direction, the acceleration field amplifies it. Everything you need starts showing up. Opportunities, people, resources, not because you're lucky, because you're coherent, because the universe responds to clarity. But here's the shadow side. The part no one talks about. When you step through the portal, when you actually shift your identity, you lose things. People who were aligned with the old you, they fall away. Relationships that were based on the old pattern, they dissolve. Plans that were built on the old foundation, they crumble. And this is where most people turn back. Because loss feels like failure. Loss feels like you did something wrong. But in the portal, loss is confirmation. It means the shift is real. It means the old structure is actually breaking down. And if you try to hold on, if you try to keep everything while becoming someone new, you'll tear yourself apart. You do this right now. You're doing it. You're standing at the edge of the portal, and part of you wants to step through, and part of you wants to run back to safety. And that tension, that split, it's exhausting. It's the reason you feel stuck, the reason you feel like you're waiting for something but you don't know what. You're waiting for permission, for a sign, for proof that it's safe to change. But there is no safety. There never was. The safe path, the one you've been walking, it's a loop. It goes nowhere. It just circles back to the same starting point over and over. And every time you circle back, you lose a little more energy, a little more time, a little more of yourself. Your mind does this. It builds a prison out of familiarity. It tells you that who you are is fixed, that your limitations are permanent, that change is dangerous. And every day you listen, the prison gets smaller, the walls get thicker, until one day you can't even remember what it felt like to want something, to believe something was possible. You just exist, going through the motions, waiting for it to end. But February 17th is a crack in the wall, in the prison. And if you're brave enough, if you're honest enough, you can slip through. Not into some fantasy life, not into perfection, into yourself, the real one. the one that's been suffocating under all the should-haves and supposed-tos, the one that knows exactly what it wants but has been too afraid to say it out loud. The portal doesn't care about your excuses, it doesn't care about your past, it doesn't care about your story. It only cares about one thing. Are you willing? Are you willing to let the old version die? Are you willing to stand in the void and not know who you are for a few days? Are you willing to build from nothing? If the answer is yes, the universe will meet you there. If the answer is no, the loop continues. And 3 years from now, in 2029, you'll look back and realize you had a chance, and you walked away. So what does this mean? What does it mean to step through the portal, to actually shift your identity? It means your relationships change. Because when you stop performing, when you stop being who you think you should be, some people won't recognize you, and they'll leave, or you'll leave. And that's not failure, that's alignment. It means the people who stay, the ones who see the real you and choose to stay, those are your people. Everyone else was just playing a role in your old story. It means your confidence changes, not because you suddenly believe you're special, but because you stop needing to be special. You stop needing external validation to feel like you matter, because you've touched something deeper. The part of you that exists regardless of achievement or approval, the part that's just here, just alive, and that's enough. It means your self-image changes. You stop defining yourself by what you've done or what you've failed to do. You stop carrying the weight of past mistakes like they're part of your identity. You realize you're not your history, you're not your trauma, you're not even your personality. You're the awareness watching all of it. And awareness can't be broken, it can't be damaged, it just is. And most importantly, it means your future changes. Not because you manifest some specific outcome, but because you stop living in reaction to your past. You stop making decisions based on fear of repeating old patterns. You start moving towards something instead of away from something. And that shift from away to toward, it changes the entire trajectory. Here's the truth. Simple. Clear, undeniable. The portal is always open. February 17th just makes it visible, easier to access. But the real portal is awareness. The moment you become conscious of the pattern, of the loop, of the lie, that's the portal, that's the threshold. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can choose to walk through or you can choose to look away. But you can't pretend you don't know anymore. The next 3 years, 2026 to 2029, they're not random. They're an initiation. A process of becoming who you actually are. And it starts with one moment, one decision, one act of radical honesty. On February 17th, or any day you choose, you stop pretending, you stop performing, you stop running. And you ask the question, who am I without the story? And then you sit in the silence, in the void, in the not knowing, and you wait, not for an answer, for the courage to live without one, because that's freedom, not having all the answers, not knowing who you'll be in 5 years, but being okay with the uncertainty, being okay with the becoming. This is the shift. This is the portal, not a date, not an event, a state of being, where you're no longer at war with yourself, where you're no longer trying to be something you're not, where you're just here, awake, aware, alive. So here's what you do now. You watch, you pay attention. Between February 7th and February 20th, notice what falls apart. Notice what shows up. Notice what you're being pulled toward and what you're being pushed away from. Don't fight it. Don't try to control it. Just observe. Because the universe is speaking. Through synchronicity, through collapse, through unexpected opportunities. And if you're listening, if you're actually present, you'll know what to do. Not because someone told you, because you remember who you are. If this video resonated with you, if something shifted while you were watching, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and in the comments, write one thing, the one thing you're releasing, the one thing you're stepping into, not for me, for you, to make it real, to seal the contract with yourself. The portal is open. The question is, are you walking through? Stay aware, stay honest, and I'll see you in the next video.